Welcome back in, guys. As always, Paladin, and I figured, guys, it was time to address all of these crazy rumors. We've got, like, the rumor mill floating around really hard about Resident Evil, the first one, of course. So I thought I would just go ahead and take a look at it. It seems to have stemmed here. Yeah, this Horror Game Central is saying RE1 remake info, according to an anonymous email received by Bio Declassified. The working title is Biohazard RE1. That actually makes sense. Should be slower paced than RE2 make. Also something that makes sense. Add a little bit of weight to characters, but also the enemies. And then of course each zombie will have their own unique model due to a small number of enemies within the game. Now it does say more, so clicking on more, let's see, more bullets required to take out RE1 zombies than RE2 make, quoted as bullet sponges. Okay, crimson heads though, I like that. RE1 lore to be explored further, okay. And then a different third-person camera will be used, slower in the pacing, and then no more pre-rendered background, so each room would load up a background asset, and the rest of assets will load when doors open, of course improving visuals and lighting. So, honestly, yeah, let's dive into RE1 remake. I'm one of the people, believe it or not, who thinks it's a good idea to have a Resident Evil 1 remake. I know majority of people out there are like, absolutely not, this can't be done. This, you know, we have a remake of it and it's perfect and stuff like that. It is perfect. I'm gonna go on record. It's perfect for when it came out. It really is. It is an amazing GameCube game. It is an amazing survival horror fixed camera game. As somebody who's played all the fixed camera Resident Evil games and all the new ones and everything, and somebody who knows people, including like my nephew, for example, who have just come into Resident Evil with Village. The fixed camera thing, it's hard for people to get on board with. So the fact that right now Capcom's kind of doing a rewrite, kind of a new lore with the remakes and stuff like that, simplifying and streamlining it seems like it makes sense for Resident Evil 1 to get a remake. Also, this is the 30th anniversary for the game, so I completely understand why they might consider announcing the game, that it's in the works. It's been a while, like, since, you know, we've had the next chapter, so I would think that like Resident Evil 9 would be probably the next project. Whereas, you know, like Resident Evil Code Veronica, RE1, RE5, even though it got heavily teased at the end of Resident Evil 4 and Separate Ways, you know, that those are projects that are probably in the works, or at least in the early stages. But who knows? I am not like an insider or anything like that. I'm just a giant fan of Resident Evil games and thought I would kind of weigh in on the RE1 talk, because it has been everywhere. I know people have also had some rumor mills floating around about Resident Evil 9 and, you know, whether you play as Leon or if you're Chris or if you're Jill, or, you know, does Rose return? There's all kinds of stuff floating around. As far as like RE9 goes, I'm just gonna wait on those. Wait until something's official. And I encourage really the same thing here for Resident Evil 1. These are great ideas. Breaking them down, there are some that are easily plausible. I mean, going under the banner of RE1 or Biohazard RE1, or dialing back the pace, these are things that could easily be a factor. I like the idea in this rumor that each zombie will have their own unique model. due to scaling back at least the zombie enemies throughout the game. I'm also curious if they do kind of lean into the Resident Evil 3 remake model of the hunters. I thought those were really cool. And not gonna lie, man, spiders, giant spiders, we haven't seen them really since well, since Remake 1 happened back on the GameCube, and I'm not sure if I'm ready to duke it out with Black Tiger, third person behind the back. But make no mistake, if this game comes, guys, oh, I will make myself ready. I will live to be ready, and I will have the itchies all the way up my body. Just thinking about it has me going, guys. So yeah, there's some things that like are to be excited about. I'm not trying to say don't be excited for the idea. I'm saying nothing's official, so let's hold off a little bit. Okay, the bullets required to take out RE1 zombies, RE1 versus RE2. I mean, okay, I mean, what I want from that, even if it takes more bullets, I like limbing zombies in Resident Evil 2, going for the legs, watching them drop like a bucket of, well, a bucket of rocks or bricks or feathers or whatever. When they hit the deck after you shoot their leg off, guys, that is just satisfying. So keep that. I'm not really sure that I feel like all the creatures in Resident Evil games, especially zombies, they soak a lot of bullets. Like, it's, you know, I've recently been playing through Code Veronica, and spoilers, you know, it can take up to 10 shots, if not potentially more, to drop them in Code Veronica, which to me lines up with RE1 Remake, which does line up with RE2 Remake. So I'm not really sure there. But the Crimson Heads you have, at this point, the remake did such a great job with the Crimson Heads. You gotta bring them back. You gotta bring them back. This one, so the lore thing, I don't really know what else there is to expand upon. I've heard other RE fans talk about this as well. I know Sunny Power has actually gone to like try to create a canon ending finale version for Resident Evil 1 Remake, where all of the cast who's still alive actually shows up on the helipad. They all get out of there. That's the biggest thing that I feel like needs to be addressed. Like, every time you play Resident Evil 1 Remake, you got you got 3 good endings, so depending on the character, and then you've got 3 bad endings, and these are depending on like what parameters are hit. So say, you know, you got freaking Chris, playing as Chris, and Rebecca gets killed by a hunter, but you're able to rescue Jill. That's its own little segment, versus Chris saving everyone versus Chris saving no one, that sort of thing. So there's a lot floating around on the endings, and I think that could just be like, let's consolidate it. Let's do what the remakes seem to be doing. Here's the definitive throughout. I know RE2 and RE2 second run do get a little muddy with things like Annette and stuff, but the endings are definitive. So in this new timeline, Leon drops Ada off of the bridge, for example. Like, that is now in the new timeline, that is the canon thing, versus in the original Resident Evil 2, where he could either drop her off the bridge or they could have a full-on makeout sesh after she got, well, X gave it to her. So that would be probably the biggest thing. I saw Bach talking about this a little bit, and he brought up Resident Evil 0, and something that I hadn't thought a lot on. I'm in agreement here. Like, Resident Evil 0 is supposed to be a canon story, so bring it into the fold if we're gonna have Rebecca. And if we're not in the new timeline, then we need to figure out, like, what's the deal? Like, is anything RE0 coming? Are you gonna, like, FF7 remake it where you can throw some elements from RE0 with James Marcus into RE1 and kind of have a 0-1 mashup for the lore for the remake? I'm not sure. A different third-person camera will be used. I'm assuming this is just a break from, you know, the fixed camera angles, moving over to third-person, slower paced. I don't know how you could get slower than RE2 make. Because, I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is The Last of Us, and then I immediately think, oh yeah, there are people who, like, go crazy with speed in The Last of Us and encounters, so never mind. Then, of course, as I touch base on, obviously they're not gonna do pre-rendereds, like, they're, you know, the remakes aren't really loading on that, so that kind of makes sense. But yeah, that's, I don't know, like, that's about kind of where I stand on the whole remake rumors, and just kind of addressing them line by line from that article that got put out, because obviously, like, if they're gonna remake Resident Evil 1, I'm going to play it, I'm going to experience it. I would love to see what changes come, but also, like, there are some things that, you know, I could see this being a simple modernization of Resident Evil. Like, and that's most likely what it's going to be. They probably will dial it down. You can't have the crazy action pace of Resident Evil 4 make in there in a mansion where you're talking about, in this rumor anyway, potentially limiting the enemy loadout. So, yeah, they'll dial back on the pace. I think they're going to double down with the atmosphere. But the one thing I will say, and I would love to be surprised, of course, with, you know, Game Fest like next month and everything, I would love to get an RE1 reveal. I'm not expecting one. I think if we're going to get something associated with a remake, it's probably going to be Resident Evil 5 with the nods to it at the end of RE4. Or they'll just blow the doors off and give us that Code Veronica remake we've been looking at. Maybe just call it Resident Evil Veronica or something like that for the rebrand. Obviously, the easiest one to predict is we'll most likely get something Resident Evil 9. So, of course, gang, I'm in the rumor mill with all of you guys, so continue to tune in, check things out, and hopefully we'll have something Resident Evil coming very soon. Hey everyone, as always, if you like this one, well, drop a like, subscribe, and tag that bell so that you don't miss out on the next one. Have a good one, guys.